Hey guys, what's going on? James here, and in this video today, we're going to be talking about what are the Tampa Bay Buccaneers options at cornerback after Carlton Davis's injury in week number 4 versus the New England Patriots. But I am not alone in this video today, or the next couple of videos that will be out here on this channel. Joining me today from the Cannon Fire podcast, he's basically pretty darn close to being the co-host of this show as well. It's Evan Wanish. Evan, how you doing, man?
Doing quite well. Thanks for having me on. And yeah, I'm happy to be the kind of the unofficial co-host of whatever we got going on here. So thanks for having me on again.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for being on. Thank you for joining me on this topic. Because, Evan, I talked about this last week where if Carlton Davis had went down with an injury, based on everything we know right now with Jamel Dean and Sean Murphy-Bunting, it may have been time to sound the alarm. And now we're definitely kind of sounding that alarm. Just to kind of give everybody a background on the situation. Carlton Davis, Jamel Dean, and Sean Murphy-Bunting have all sustained injuries in the first 4 weeks of the season. And right now, the timetable for all of their returns is in question. Evan, thoughts on that? Because right now this situation is not great.
No, I mean it's the weakest part of the team. I think. I think even at running back, you look at and you see talented guys, but I think in the secondary you see some talent, but you also see some more inexperience, and you're sort of wondering about the consistency of them. And now you're not even getting to see the starters. I mean, it's really remarkable. Not one, not two, but all three starting corners have gone down. You might play the Dolphins with Richard Sherman and Pierre Desir as your two corners who weren't even on the team week 1. So it's really remarkable. And it's not good, like you said, because I think it's already a thin group. It's something that, like, if this team was going to succeed this season, the secondary was going to need to stay healthy. Now, the one silver lining is that while these timetables aren't exactly clear for their return, it doesn't seem like any of these are season ending. So it does seem like these guys will return at some point. So that's really the only positive thing you can take from this, is that they're not gone for the year, right? If the Bucs, when they make the playoffs, those guys will be able to play. Like they're not going to be gone for the rest of the season. So right now, I just think it's all about just trying to survive, I guess, because they may get some of them back sooner rather than later. We'll see. But yeah, it's not looking very good for the secondary right now.
And we will talk about those injuries in a separate video, guys, so definitely stay tuned for that. But like you said, Evan, even if the running back group, right, had sustained injuries, people always say that, oh, running backs, they come in at a dime a dozen, Not the same thing with cornerbacks, right? Not the same thing at all. I mean, you can pluck a starting running back really out of a lot of different situations, especially in free agency. Not so much in the cornerback realm, right? And let's just first take a look at the current group of guys that the Buccaneers have right now, because you did mention that. So let's go ahead and look at these guys. So right now, the current group of cornerbacks that are on the Buccaneers roster who aren't hurt include Richard Sherman, who joined the team on September 28th, Pierre Desir, who joined the team on September 13th, Ross Cockrell, who was on the team last season. He was the 4th cornerback to start this season, and to be fair, he did start multiple games so far this year and a little bit last year for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, so you got to give Ross Cockrell props for that. D. Delaney, who was the 5th cornerback to start this season for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He has been with the team since May 25th when he joined late in the offseason. And then finally, Rashard Robinson, who isn't even currently on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers active roster. He was elevated from the practice squad in week number 4 versus the Patriots, and he joined the team on September 20th. So, Evan, what are your thoughts on all of this? Because right now, we've got 3 guys who have been on the team since September, 1 guy who's only been on the team since May 25th, and then Ross Cockrell, who right now is the well and above far most seasoned guy in Todd Bowles' defense. So, holy crap, this is certainly something, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not something you expected, but injuries can happen at any point. You can't predict them. That's why it's so tough with any type of prediction you're trying to do, because injuries can wreck anything. And like you said about the running backs, you're able to find a running back. Todd Gurley is still a free agent. Adrian Peterson's still a free agent. Your running back room goes down to sign one of those guys, and they can maybe not be as good, but they can get the job done, whatever, right? Look at all the injuries the Ravens had to their running back room and the 49ers, but corner is different, right? It's much different. Not only, running back can come in and pick up an offense pretty quick because they're running the ball. I do know there's certain things in the scheme and stuff that they have to understand, but a defense is so much more complex to pick up, especially when you're a corner in a complicated system. Todd Bowles' system, it takes a little bit to get acquainted to. The good news is that Richard Sherman's a smart player. He's always been regarded as a very smart player. I mean, this dude played 98% of the snaps on 3 days of practice. So I think he was familiar enough with it to be able to play. And like you said, Ross Cockrell has experience in this defense. So like I said, man, they just gotta try and survive these next few games. Hopefully none of them turn into long-term injuries. We still don't know about the Carlton Davis one. We're pretty confident that SMB and Jamel Dean aren't long-term. We're pretty confident they'll be back eventually. Carlton Davis, we still don't quite know yet, but just got to try and survive with this group. And the good thing is that they're not facing many prolific offenses in the next few weeks, so they catch a few breaks there, but they still got to be productive. And teams have been passing the ball on them even with their healthy secondary, so now they're going to be passing on even more.
Yeah, so you talked about all these guys here on the roster. One important thing to note is like, hey, the Bucs brought in Richard Sherman, right? Everybody thought that was a move they should have made. Went outside who they had on this roster and said, okay, we're going to bring somebody else in. They've done a lot of moves, right? Sherman, Pierre Desir, Rashard Robinson, these are guys who have all been brought in. One, and I know a lot of people are going to be talking about this, that's why we're making this video, Evan, is, people are going to say, well, who else can we bring in, right? The Buccaneers should trade for a cornerback. The Buccaneers, who's available in free agency, right? And I wanted to highlight some guys in free agency that maybe the Tampa Bay Buccaneers put on their practice squad. Maybe they bring them to the active roster if injuries like Sean Murphy-Bunting's and Jamel Dean's and Carlton Davis's all knock them out for maybe a few more weeks. These are guys the Tampa Bay Buccaneers could bring in, but there's one important thing to note here, Evan, is that there isn't another Richard Sherman in free agency.
No.
Anybody that the Buccaneers would get would either need to be traded for, which we'll talk about that in a second, or won't be too big of a name in free agency, or even potentially from other teams' practice squads, which I've explored all those options, and I want your thoughts on them right here, Evan. So let's first start off with this, okay? Let's go to free agency options. Let's go to other teams' practice squads. What would make the most sense? There's 4 guys who come to mind, and I want your thoughts on them one at a time here. So first guy is Prince Amukamara. 32 years old, played for the Giants, the Jaguars, the Bears, the Cardinals, the Raiders, and the Saints this past offseason before he was released. 6 feet tall, 206 pounds, would be a solid veteran option. And I don't think that he would have the same, not even immediate success as, say, Richard Sherman, but I think that you would definitely bring him in more at a slower pace than what you did with Richard Sherman. But me and you have talked about this. What are your thoughts on Amukamara here potentially being an option?
Yeah, I think out of the free agents, he's probably your best option. I think he's probably the best option you have out of free agency now, because it's like Richard Sherman was tier 1, and then you had like tier 2, and that was like Amukamara, Quentin Dunbar. Of course, Quentin Dunbar was signed by the Cardinals, but like Amukamara was in there. He wouldn't be horrible. I just, like you said, he's not going to be able to play right away, and like by the time he's ready to play and be effective, like one of Jamel Dean and Sean Murphy Bunting might be back, and like both those guys are better than him. So I'm not sure if you need to use your limited resources now, even more limited since you signed Richard Sherman. I'm not sure if you need to use it on a guy like that. I'm not sure if it's worth it, because he's probably not going to come in a minimum contract. I'm not saying he's going to cost a ton, but you're going to have to pay him something. And I'm not sure exactly how much he has left in the tank either, but I do think out of all the free agent options that are currently without a job, he's probably the best one. I just don't know if he's the best for this current situation.
Another guy I thought of was Conley. He is still
Yeah.
available. Former first round pick in 2017 with the Raiders. Hasn't played since 2019. These are the options, by the way, that people have, folks. The Bucs have, by the way. Since 2019, as he wasn't with the team this past offseason, spent the entirety of 2020 on the injured reserve with the Houston Texans. In the case of like Amukamara and Conley, could either one of these guys be somebody who you bring on the practice squad, or work out, kick the tires on them to see if they're a fit for the team?
It's possible, and I think maybe they do that. I think it depends on how this Miami game goes. I think it depends on how the secondary looks. I think they want to give it a shot. But if they struggle and maybe the Bucs lose or the Bucs win, but the defense is really struggling, maybe you could see them bring in a Mukamara or Garrett Conley to a workout or a practice squad spot, because you can sign anybody you're allowed to sign veterans now to the practice squad. You're allowed a limited number of veterans on the practice squad, so you just have to take up a spot there. So it would be an interesting move. I think that's what is more likely than just signing them to the active roster. And I don't know if there's really an ask for them right now, so they would join the practice squad, because if there was a demand for them, they would already be signed to a team. Like they wouldn't be sitting there. So in the case of Conley, it's tough to gauge on a guy who just didn't play at all. Like Richard Sherman played a little bit in 2020, but Richard Sherman's also Richard Sherman. Conley is kind of like an unproven thing still. A guy with the Raiders, they picked him and it just didn't really work out. So he would be interesting for the practice squad if you want a guy that's younger but does have some experience. But yeah, we'll see what happens. I do think they're going to wait. If they're going to do something like that, I think they would just rather wait and see what happens and hopefully give the benefit of the doubt to this current group they have.
Yeah, and then finally here, two more options I have in terms of practice squads. These are guys who are on other practice squads right now. You have Parnell Motley, was on the Lions practice squad, or is on the Lions practice squad currently, was with the Bucs in 2020. Familiar with the playbook to a certain degree, right? Possibly more so than a backup like Rashard Robinson, and could also be ready to play sooner. And then also Herb Miller. He is currently on the Cleveland Browns practice squad. He was with the Buccaneers practice squad to start the season. Would know the playbook, would be ready to play more than anybody who's currently available. So if there's another injury to a guy like Rashard Robinson or a D. Delaney, or maybe even a Ross Cockrell, do you see them calling up a Herb Miller or a Parnell Motley as a backup guy?
I think you could see Herb Miller. I think that's a very realistic thing. Now, one thing to note is that, since those guys are on practice squads, you cannot sign them to a practice squad. They have to be signed to your active roster. They have to be on the roster. So Mukamara and Conley can be signed to a practice squad. Herb Miller and Motley cannot. So I think in that case, I think it would be much more likely they just call Miller and say, hey, we're going to be bringing you back. And, the playbook. He literally was released like 2 weeks ago. So like he knows the playbook very well. He was here last year, was in with the team, the entire training camp. Thought he played well, not well enough. Obviously, D. Delaney beat him out. But I think that would be the more likely case if they were to call up either one of those guys.
Absolutely. And then just to round up the options here, talking about trade stuff, Evan, I know a lot of people have been calling for this, right? A lot of people, even despite the Richard Sherman signing. I've been seeing a lot of people saying the Buccaneers should still trade for a cornerback. Guys, based on the research that I've done, and Evan, I'm sure you've looked at this kind of situation as well, there really currently aren't any more players who are in trade rumors, right? CJ Henderson from the Jaguars, he's gone. Bradley Roby, I believe he was with the Broncos or the Texans rather.
Texans, yeah.
He's gone. So there's really nobody else who's been rumored to be a trade piece at the cornerback position from around the other 31 teams in the league. So right now, I wouldn't even consider this an option for the Bucs, just because they have a group of guys that are here currently. They have some free agent practice squad options, and again, if you trade for a guy, he's going to be just as potentially lost as somebody you'd sign off of free agency. So, Evan, what are your thoughts on the idea of trading for a corner?
Yeah, obviously the one guy that actually is in trade rumors is the guy that is just not possible, and that's Stephon Gilmore. And obviously everybody, like, he's the one that's like legit in trade rumors. Like, he is like legit a possibility to be traded, but it's also just not going to happen. The reason he wants to be traded is because he wants a brand new contract. That's a contract that the Bucs probably can't afford without saying goodbye to a Carlton Davis, or without saying goodbye to, maybe not this year, but in following years, saying goodbye to an important piece that maybe they don't want to lose, but they just have no choice. So, and also you're not going to be able to get him for a 5th-round pick. Like it's going to cost you at least a 2nd-round pick probably. So I understand. I agree, right, with the thought process of, well, draft picks mean a lot less now because you're trying to win this year. I agree with that, right? And I would be fine in the right deal to give up a 2nd-round pick, but not when you have to give up a 2nd-round pick and then also pay this man 18, 19, $20 million a year. That's where things get a little sticky. And I just don't think they can do that. Now, I also, like you said, I looked around the league. I looked at all the teams that sucked, basically. I looked at the Lions. I looked at the Jets. I looked at the Texans. I looked at the Jaguars. And I'm trying to find cornerbacks that they could trade for, right? Because those are the teams that are going to be unloading at the deadline, most likely, right? They're going to be unloading rentals. I mean, you got Philly with Darius Slay, but I don't think they want to move him. That could be an option if they were open to moving him. You have the Giants with James Bradbury, who they're delusional and think they can actually compete. So they're not going to trade him. Really nothing else. One name I will throw out, and it's a popular one. It's a big name. He's a veteran. He's on a 1-year contract, so it's a rental. It won't impact your future. And he's on a team that's not very good. And he's familiar with a Todd Bowles defense, and that's Patrick Peterson. Patrick Peterson signed a 1-year deal with the Vikings. I'm not reporting anything there. I'm just speculating. If the Vikings keep losing, maybe that's a route the Bucs take. If Carlton Davis's injury is long-term and the secondary is really struggling, maybe that's a route they take. But I think, trade options are few and far between, and I wouldn't see it as likely at all.
One important thing to make a note of, too, in regards to a trade is, if you make a trade and everybody does come back healthy, that turns into a very crowded cornerback room.
Yeah.
Very crowded.
Depth is good, but it's a logjam.
Right. It would be a logjam, and you'd definitely be having some awkward situations, I think. And I know what people are going to say is hey, you can never have too much depth. That is fair, but, there's already so many guys here.
It's not like pass rushers where you can sort of rotate them in.
Right. You're not going to do that.
Your corners are going to be on the field most of the time. You're not really going to have just a rotation of corners. That doesn't make any sense. So it's if it was like a pass rusher, sure, because the more pass rushers, you can just keep rotating them in and keep them fresh, fine. But you're not going to do that with rolling 4 or 5 different cornerbacks every play. Right.
So, Evan, at the end of the day here, what is the Bucs' best option? In my opinion, I think that the Bucs, they're hoping that SMB, Jamel Dean, and Carlton Davis can all recover from their injuries in a quick manner, right? I think that using the few guys that they have at their disposal, while maybe, big maybe here, by the way, maybe making 1 or 2 moves to bring in extra bodies like the guys that we mentioned, the 4 guys, though that would be probably the most likely option here, I would think. The most realistic option. I think that trading for a big name, it could work, but man, it would certainly complicate things later on down the line. You said it earlier on in the video, I think that they're going to roll with some of the guys they have, maybe get 1 or 2 guys on the practice squad and just roll the dice. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of it obviously depends on the statuses of the 3 corners, the 3 starters, which they know right now. Right now, they currently know more than we do, right? Right now, they might know a timetable for Carlton Davis. They might know a realistic timetable for Sean Murphy-Bunting or Jamel Dean, and we just don't have that information right now. But without that information, I still am going to guess that, they're going to give this secondary a chance to prove themselves. They were able to get a win. They didn't play great on Sunday night, but they also didn't play horrible, especially with the circumstances of just being thrown in there. I think they're going to give these guys a shot, but I also think, that they won't be scared to make a move, as we've seen with Richard Sherman. They won't be scared that if the secondary is not performing to maybe work out a Gary and Conley or a Prince Amukamara or bring back a Herb Miller or something like that. I don't think they'd be scared to do that. I think also they would love to trade for a corner. It's just not possible. This isn't Monopoly money, and this isn't Madden. I think they would love to be able to trade for more depth at cornerback, I'm sure, but it's not possible. So I do think they're going to roll, at least for the next 2-3 weeks. I think they're going to roll with what they got.
Absolutely. And just to clarify, I would imagine Sherman at the 1, Pierre Desir at the 2, probably Ross Cockrell in the nickel.
Probably, yeah. You didn't really see much of D. Delaney on Sunday night, so I would think those are their three. And I thought Desir played pretty well.
He almost
Almost
had a pick.
Yeah, almost had a pick. Just mistimed it just a little bit. Just gotta get that timing down. So, yeah, I thought he played decent. We'll see how they do against Miami.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Evan, I thank you for joining me on this video. Everybody who's watching, give us your thoughts about this entire situation. We gave a lot of stuff here, right? A lot of good info, I think, about what the current situation is, what all these options are, and what we both feel the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will do at the end of the day. Evan, before we go ahead and end off this video, do you have any final words?
Yeah, check me out, Cannon Fire Podcast on YouTube and also anywhere you can find a podcast. We're coming up on trying to get 3,000 subscribers on the YouTube channel, so we are getting there, but we need your help, and hope we can join along for some great Bucs content.
Absolutely, and I will have a link to their channel down in the pinned comment down below. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hope you all enjoyed, and we will see you all in the next video or the next live stream. But until then, and as always, guys, goodbye for now, and go Bucs.